You're listening to the Transform Your Nutrition podcast with your hosts, Rebecca Heald and Jeff Ash. Our purpose is to help individuals and families transform their relationships with food and develop healthy bodies, minds, and attitudes, all without restriction, guilt, or shame. All right, so we're here for another episode, and we're excited to talk about a really interesting topic today. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Half term here. So yeah, just juggling kids and work and clients and everything, but all good, all good. What about you?
Pretty good. I got my first vaccination this week. So
Oh yes, of course.
yeah.
I forgot to, yes.
So that went really well. Just a little soreness in my arm, and then this weekend we're going out of town to go see my wife's brother and his wife and our two young nephews. So we're excited to go get some baby cuddle times, and so that'll be fun.
Nice. Is that who you went to see? I think have I seen your photo holding one of your nephews before?
Yes. Yeah, he's older now and he's more expressive and all of that. So we're excited to kind of see him at that. You know, they grow so fast, they develop so quickly at that age. They go from just laying there to like having little personalities and stuff. And so excited to see that.
Personalities. I wish my kids had little personalities.
Yeah. We'll see if it grows into a big personality over time here.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Just how quickly they progress.
Yes,
amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So our topic for today is something a little different. So we thought we would ask this question: how can eating for pleasure and satisfaction actually promote better health? Because we talk about in the intuitive eating stuff, if you've listened to us before, there's these 10 different principles. And kind of the last of the principles is actually related to nutrition itself, gentle nutrition and the food choices that we make and those kinds of things. So, so much of intuitive eating kind of focuses around this pleasure, satisfaction. What is it that you're desiring and feeling fullness and stuff, and how can we eat in that way and actually have that promote health, or does it promote health?
I think it's something that kind of is at the hub of intuitive eating, really. Satisfaction and pleasure. And I think principle 6 or something like that does talk about satisfaction, the satisfaction factor as well. And how, fundamentally we are supposed to enjoy our food. Is it the Japanese? Were we talking about this recently?
Yeah.
About how the Japanese, pleasure is at the forefront, isn't it, of the way that they eat. And I think, pleasure and satisfaction is one of the main reasons that we do eat, apart from obviously to keep ourselves alive physically. Yeah. So, but I think the issue is, particularly here in the UK, over there in the US as well, is that diet culture really has interfered with that, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's also a misunderstanding on what pleasurable eating and satisfying eating means, because I think some people think, well, if I just eat for pleasure and satisfaction, I'm just going to eat candy and chocolate and cake and quotes junk food all the time. And if you really stop and think about it, how many of us find pleasure and satisfaction in eating nothing but highly processed fast food, sweets and those kinds of things? How many of us really feel satisfied and pleasurable eating nothing but that? Well, I don't think any of us do. I think a lot of us maybe who struggle and eat more of that than we should be. It comes down to there's different reasons. It's certainly not for pleasure and satisfaction.
No, and I think once you take away that forbidden food kind of concept, which comes along with restriction and dieting, you're not necessarily going to get the same pleasure out of it as you think that you're going to, because you're restricting it. Does that make sense? So I think, I think there's been studies been done as well to show that kind of, when we eat in a way where we're pursuing satisfaction and pleasure, where we're thinking about the aesthetics of food, thinking about, what food symbolizes, etc. We actually end up eating less. We end up eating smaller portions because we are eating food that is pleasurable and satisfying. And I think the thing is as well, I think it's a double-edged sword, because I totally agree with you that people think oh, if I'm going to eat for pleasure, I'm just going to eat all the cookies and crisps. And that is, if you think like that, you are restricting.
Yeah.
Because that's not the case at all. And I think there is also this, what I think people have become so disconnected with what pleasure and satisfaction means for them, because from such a young age, they've been told to eat in a certain way. So, how many people really do think about what food, what food tastes like, what it smells like, the texture, all of those things, like, texture, temperature, what it looks like. How many people really, really pay attention to those things when they eat these days? And they're not doing that. They're thinking about, well, is this going to help me lose weight or maintain weight or gain weight? They're constantly thinking in those terms. Is this good? Is this bad? Rather than, I really want this because it's crunchy or it smells nice, or, this is actually the kind of thing that I like. I've seen it with some of the women on my group program who've said, I've realized that I'm eating foods that I don't really like that much just because my food rules told me it was okay. They freak out about eating foods that don't feel safe, and that's a real, mixed up way to be eating, really, isn't it? But I think, I'm not going to say I haven't been there, because I have, and I used to, the other thing is how many people, it's about relearning as well. I think intuitive eating is a really great way of relearning what does satisfy you and what you get pleasure from when it comes to eating.
Yeah.
Because I think you can tell yourself you don't like certain foods. Like, I remember telling myself I didn't like cheese, and I still don't like certain cheeses, but there were certain, high calorie, high fat foods that I would say I didn't like. Just, I'd convince myself I didn't like them. And I went, it was amazing when you begin to, let go of restriction, you discover the pleasure of food again, because you realize how good things taste. Yeah. And you realize that when you allow yourself to have them, you do eat less of them.
Yeah. Well, when you are eating for the explicit purpose of enjoying your food, and you slow down and you're being more connected with your eating experience, being more mindful of it, all of those different things, you start to actually taste the food again too. So you eat a piece of pizza, and now you're starting to recognize all the subtle flavors that are in there, and that you're missing out on when you're just eating to fuel your body. And a lot of this diet mentality tells us we're supposed to eat. Food is just fuel, just this over focus on fueling your body. And now many people will say, oh, well, eat the foods that you love and that you enjoy, but there's still this focus on just fueling your body. And yes, that's important. Of course that's important, but there's so much more that we can get during that process by tuning in and saying, am I enjoying this? Am I no longer enjoying this? Because there are certain things we might eat 3 or 4 times more than we really needed to be satisfied and find enjoyment in that food. Yet we just keep eating because we're disconnected. And I find now, after going through this process of becoming much more of an intuitive eater, and I'm still on this process, and it's going to be a lifelong thing. Exactly. But the more I tune into it, the more I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I never really noticed this flavor in this thing, or I never noticed this texture. And it just brings out so much more enjoyment in that experience. And I also notice I stop too. Once I'm like, okay, all I'm doing now is shoveling this stuff in, and I'm full. It's not even really tasting particularly great anymore. I might as well stop eating now.
Well, there's a great quote. Where did I read it? It might have been in the Intuitive Eating Workbook, because I keep meaning to do a post around this. And my clients, I've been doing some work on some of my clients, so I've been going through a process of getting them to really, really engage in the different textures, flavors, smells, etc., that they really like. And it's interesting because one of these, one of the quotes that I read recently was around, like, if you don't love it, don't eat it, basically. And if you don't love it, savor it. And if you love it, sorry. So if you don't love it, don't eat it. And if you love it, savor it. So when you're choosing foods from a place of, these are the foods that I really enjoy and are going to satisfy me, you'll savor it, which usually means that you end up eating less of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I mean, I had some feedback from one of my clients yesterday, and she's the one who had been working around this. Okay, let's really think about what foods, really do, feel good for you. Because it's also as well, part of pleasure and satisfaction is about kind of, you know, how it satisfies you physically as well. It
Hmm.
is. So it's also paying attention to how foods make you feel, how full they feel in your stomach and things like that. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's such a great kind of journey to go through, isn't it? To actually think about how foods look, how appealing they are, how aesthetically pleasing they are, the symbolic value perhaps in their life for you. Like
Hmm.
this week we've been having lots of cake because there's been lots of celebrations, and that's good because it's got a symbolic meaning. And then it's like, okay, and then how do those foods actually make me feel? How does my, how full am I? Because the other thing is, you can make a choice. You don't always have to make a choice that is going to fill you
Hmm.
to the optimum fullness level when you're eating. It all depends what's going on. You might make a choice to choose a food because you're not going to eat again. It all depends on what's going on, doesn't it? So if
Yeah.
you know you're going to eat again quite soon, you can choose something that maybe is not as filling but has more pleasure and satisfaction taste wise. Whereas if you know you're going to have to go longer, maybe you're going to have to make another choice.
Hmm.
So it's all about taking responsibility as well.
Yeah. Well, and really investigating how you feel, like you were talking about, how you feel while you're eating, but also how you feel later.
Yeah.
So another example of kind of what you were talking about is there are times when I eat certain foods or certain amounts of food based on what I know I'm going to be doing later. So if I'm eating now, knowing that I'm going to be going and working out at the gym in the next hour or so, I don't eat for fullness and satisfaction at that, like where I might at another meal. I eat with the intent of, okay, I'm getting ready to go to the gym. I want to give myself enough protein uh, before that and enough to take the edge off my hunger and to give me enough energy to get through my workout. But I don't want to feel like I have any food in my stomach. So when my workout's over, I might actually be a little hungrier than I would have been had I been trying to kind of evenly space out my meals.
Yeah.
But I did that based on how I know I'm going to feel. I want to feel good at the gym, and I can always then eat later. And the same with all kinds of things, like you were saying, you might just have at one point you might just eat a smaller amount knowing that you're going to be eating soon, and you don't want to spoil your appetite, for example, later on down the road. So you might choose to eat a certain amount or a certain food at that time. But it's all about tuning into your body and what it needs and how it feels and how you like to feel. And so that's one of the things that through the intuitive eating process that I found really beneficial was later on, maybe 30 minutes, an hour later, just stopping and pausing and saying, how am I feeling right now about what I just had for dinner? Am I full? Is my stomach did I get enough? Did I get too much? Because sometimes I'm thinking, okay, I actually ate far more than I really needed to. And so maybe next time when I have that food, I can know, okay, 4 pieces of pizza was probably a good stopping point rather than six or however it was. And so really when you're eating for pleasure, satisfaction, and thinking in those terms and actually tuning into your body, that can help you eat a more appropriate amount of food. And recently, I had that experience with pizza. I did. I've kind of tuned into what is the amount of pizza that really satisfies me and gives me that optimal feeling at dinner time. And now I'm eating that amount. It's actually significantly less than what I used to eat.
Yeah.
And it also leaves some pizza left for the next day. I can enjoy it again the next day. And
I,
so that's how I think this eating for pleasure, satisfaction, how your body feels can translate into actually a more healthy, balanced way of eating.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it has when we are eating for pleasure and satisfaction, we tend to have a higher sense of well-being. And I think it's also associated with lower BMI as well. Some studies have shown
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The research backs all this up.
Yeah, it does. And it makes perfect sense. And I've got a great, with the pizza thing. we had quite a lot of pizza, takeaway pizza. You probably noticed on my,
Every Friday.
I'm not, we had it again. We're going to have pizza. I'm like, I'm sick of pizza. Can we get something else? Because to be fair, I never was a pizza, because, my family are Italian. We always had proper pizza. But then in lockdown, there's a local pizza. Some guy opened Weirdo's Pizza. Anyone who's listening in Lincoln, Weirdo's Pizza. He started doing pizzas from home. He's now expanded. He's got, he's doing really, really well. But his pizzas are quite authentic. And so we ended up becoming, lockdown pizza fiends. And what I'm going to say here is that in the past, if I'd have had a takeaway pizza, I probably would have I would have just ended up eating it all because it was there. Whereas, now it's like, well, it's something I can do whenever I want. It's something that I don't have to do, once in a blue moon. So when I do it, like you, I rarely will eat the whole pizza, because it's like, if I ate the whole pizza, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I wouldn't enjoy it as much, and I wouldn't want to do it then as often. And you know what? Having a pizza we've been doing it too much recently. I'm not pizzaed out. But, I think it's just, again, exactly what you said. It's about that experience. And I did exactly the same thing. I was like, okay, I experimented with it a few times, thinking, how much is the right amount? How much do I feel okay with? And and now I kind of know. I know where I feel good. And like you say, there's always pizza the next day if the kids eat it.
Well, what's interesting too is since I'm coming from a more of that traditional fitness background, the calorie counting is how I got started in this, and doing the counting the calories and tracking macros and all of that stuff. And I haven't done that for several years now. But when I did do that, I still have that mindset and that mentality. And of course, our nutrition training, we have an understanding of the calorie content. But what was interesting when I did the pizza thing and had made that conscious decision, after figuring out kind of the sweet spot for the amount of pizza that suits me for dinner, because I eat very consistently throughout the day. I typically eat the same amount of food at breakfast and lunch and throughout the day. And my activity levels are pretty consistent. I'm just kind of a boring person in that way. But at dinner, I tend to eat about the same amount of food each night. And so what I did is, after I figured out kind of that sweet spot for pizza, I was curious. So I tallied up the calorie content, and the calorie content, it actually made it a very reasonable meal with the amount of pizza. And so, a lot of people think
your body is your best
it really is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get caught up in that mentality that, oh, pizza's a cheat food, or it's junk food, or it's something I shouldn't eat very often. And I had a client recently, a young person make reference to the fact that can't eat the store-bought stuff because it's not healthy, but homemade pizza is healthy. And so, we had to kind of work through that and talked about what's the difference, what are the ingredients, what makes it unhealthy, and realized, oh yeah, I guess there's really nothing inherently unhealthy with pizza. And anyway, when you think of it in those terms, it's still, it actually made it a much healthier experience once I tuned in and figured out what's the right amount for me. And now I feel so much better too. I don't, going to bed after having pizza for dinner, I still feel satisfied, and I'm not stuffed. My stomach's not at that, I ate way too much. And that kind of thing. So
no, exactly that. And it's interesting as well, because I think, when you're counting calories, and I'm not saying it's not, there are some people that are fine with counting calories, but I think there is the danger sometimes of, when you're counting calories, you can work out how many calories you've got, you can allocate, and then you're not, you are literally listening to a calorie counter telling you how much to eat rather than your own body, which is again when you can end up overeating or undereating because of that. And there's no pleasure or satisfaction in either of those, really, is there?
No, especially if you felt like you just needed a little bit more. Like if my calorie counter told me I could have 3 pieces of pizza, but I really wanted 4, I could do that, but I'd go to bed maybe a little hungrier. Or even worse, maybe it said I can only have 2 or I can only have 1. And so, you get into this mindset of allowing it to tell you how much, instead of just taking a few moments to say, how much do I need? Because it may be that the calorie counter said I can have 4 pieces, but I really only needed 2 on that particular day. And now I've I've eaten more than I needed to. And these are different things that I talk with clients about. When they're talking about, well, how much should I be eating and this and that? And we really dig into, how do you feel? How did you feel at the end of the day when you skipped lunch? How did you feel when you skipped that snack? How did you feel when you had the extra snack? Those kinds of things. And and I think that that's how all of this, kind of coming back to that initial question, when we're listening to our body and how that can really translate into better health, not just physical health, but mental health, emotional health, social health, whatever it is. And so, would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because I think the other thing is as well is when you're listening to and you're in tune with your own body, you're never going to feel confused or wonder about how much you should be eating. I remember, when I was really stuck in the whole, going out, doing anything was just stressful.
Hmm.
I couldn't go out with my kids. I couldn't go to the beach. I couldn't go for a meal. I couldn't do anything because it was like, I don't know, how am I going to eat? I don't know what food choices to make because it doesn't fit in with the particular diet that I'm following right now. Does that?
Hmm.
And that is not good
No.
for your mental or your physical, your spiritual, your emotional. It's not good for your health, full stop.
Hmm.
So when you are, eating and listening to your body, and you're eating for the pleasure and satisfaction and listening to your body, that kind of is lifted. And you feel, it's just the best light bulb moment ever, because you just suddenly you feel, when you can listen to your own body to make the decisions for you, it's
Hmm.
so much calmer. I've got so many of my clients, they say to me that the noise in my head has stopped. I'm so much calmer. I'm so much more confident in my own decisions. And it spills over. And I know we've spoken about this before, but it spills over into every aspect
Hmm.
of your life, because you feel more in charge just in general, and you feel more confident in your own decisions, because when you're eating, rather than listening to your body and listening to its pleasure and satisfaction factor, you are trying to, you're listening to somebody else. So it slowly erodes trust in your own ability to
Hmm.
make decisions, which
Well,
impacts on all
yeah.
sorts of areas of health.
Yeah. Well, and we know too that a lot of people struggle with emotional eating. And if you're eating in a way that's not contributing to your emotional and mental health,
Yeah.
it's going to make it even more challenging to work through that emotional eating. So again, it's one of those things where if you can find ways that help in that area, that help with your emotional health, your mental health, your social health, that can then translate into making it much easier to get a handle on how you're eating. Because when anytime that, if you're an emotional eater and the way you're eating is a detriment to your emotional health, it's only going to exacerbate the problem. And that's what a lot of these eating patterns and diets and stuff do, is you have an emotional eater and now you're restricting them, which is going to cause more emotional strain, which
Yeah.
then makes it much more difficult to stick to it. And then when you can't stick to the plan because it's too restrictive, then you beat yourself up for cheating on your diet, and then it's just this cycle, and we see it time and time again. And it's amazing what when you it's not that you throw out the nutritious the nutrition part of the equation. It's not that you don't give any regard to the quality of the food that you're eating, or the kinds of food you're eating, or that you aren't being mindful of eating vegetables and good sources of protein and all of that. I mean, those are important things, but when you make that the focus, it sort of takes your attention off of the big picture items that actually are going to make the most difference and make it actually easier to eat in that way.
Definitely. Absolutely. So on that note, how would you, what would you suggest? What advice would you give to people to kind of, because like I said to you before, I don't think, and I would put my money on the fact that most of my clients, when they start with me, are not eating for pleasure or
Mhm.
satisfaction. They're eating in a way that they feel is the right way for health.
Yeah.
Yeah, quote unquote. And I even had this not just last week. One of my clients sat there and she said, I realized every morning I've been having poached egg on toast for breakfast because I'd been told that was a good thing to have for breakfast. And she said, and I realized the other day, I don't even like it. You know, I was just eating it because it was safe, you know? So yeah, what tips or what advice would you give to somebody to help them get back in touch with the satisfaction and pleasure?
Yeah, a lot of what I do with people initially is just ask them what they eat, what they like, and then I'll ask them to be very honest and really like really be really think about the fact that do you actually like the food that you're eating? Do you really like this? Or they may even say, I eat a lot of fast food out and this and that. I'll even ask, do you actually like a McDonald's cheeseburger? Because I'll eat them, but I really don't like them. If I stop and think, I'm like, these are salty. And yeah, sometimes they kind of satisfy a nice little taste, but ultimately it's a super low quality burger that had I gone and just taken a salad with grilled chicken in it, it's probably going to taste better. But we get it stuck in our mind that this is just how we eat and that kind of thing. So yeah, a lot of times I just say, do you actually like eating what you're eating? And sometimes they
why'd you make those choices?
why are you eating poached eggs on toast, like you were saying? And is there something else? Would a bowl of cereal that you think is not as healthy, would that satisfy your need? Would it still provide you with the same nutritional value that poached egg and toast does? Would it make your day start off better in a way that then later on is easier to eat in a way that may be more beneficial to your body in those other meals? And so, so I mean, those are some of the things where I start is, do you like what you're eating? And sometimes they say, yeah. Sometimes they say, yes, I do like what I'm eating. Okay, well, great. And then kind of go from there. But more often than not, there are things that they're eating that they don't really like. And you can easily replace them with something that they do like that in many cases is just as, quote, healthy or even more so because, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I'm avoiding this or I'm avoiding that. Well, that thing you're avoiding is actually really good for you. Oh, it is. Like potatoes. That's one that comes up a lot.
Oh, that
like,
came up in my group program.
These things are yeah. I'm like, there's more potassium than bananas. It's a lot of nutrients.
Potatoes are something that a lot of the ladies in my group have been restricting, and we've got a WhatsApp group, really, really supportive group. Actually, fantastic. I'm loving my group program at the minute. And yeah, there's some stuff going around about potatoes in there. Yeah. So.
But yeah, those are just some simple examples that come to mind.
Yeah, and I think I had it as well where after my last workshops, where people were saying, they were choosing foods. I think there was one lady who was saying, I'm eating Muller Lights because I've been told they're better than Greek yogurt. And I'm eating crisps because nuts have got too many calories, but I really love and raw nuts as well, and again, she was choosing, more processed foods because that probably weren't keeping her as full either. Right. Because the diet rules had told her that she needed to eat in that way. So she was choosing foods that weren't satisfying her, that weren't from a taste perspective and weren't satisfying her either from a physical perspective, from a satiety perspective. It's just mad. It's just madness. And then you wonder why people are confused and feeling, lethargic, stressed, like they don't know where to turn anymore. I often get clients as well. Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to really get clients to think about. I think even just being more mindful and present when you're eating can really help as well, because when you slow down and really think about what you're eating, you notice it as well. So you might notice that you're eating things that are not necessarily as satisfying. But also as well, I also do get clients to think about all of the senses, like, okay, what appeals to you aesthetically? What kind of food, do you like colourful foods? Everyone is different. What kind of foods texture-wise? Do you like mushy food? Do you like crunchy food? Do you like, what kind of foods, appeal? What kind of smells do you like? Like some people, love different smells. Some people like sweet smells. Some people like, smoky smells, all that kind of stuff. So I get them to really, really think about what actually appeals to them. And then one thing I'm doing in my group program next week, spoiler alert, if anybody's watching it, and they're on my group, but I'm going to get them to do that. And then I'm going to get them to try and, construct a meal that kind of, yeah, and not every meal is going to appeal to all of your senses and
Right.
keep you full and satisfied, but and it doesn't have to. But I'm going to get them to think about constructing a meal thinking about all of the senses as well, because I think that can be a really great way of reconnecting with what really does keep, what is really pleasurable to you.
Yeah, it's a matter of just most of us, I think, that's where we just don't even take the time, and certainly diets don't tell us to look at that and to really be introspective about that. And it's not like it takes tons of work to just stop and think, what foods do I like? And then while you're eating dinner, do I even like this food? Just ask yourself, do I like this food? Yeah, I really do. Or you might be eating it and say, I really don't like this. I don't know why I eat this all the time.
Yeah.
And just taking a few moments to pause like that, then you can really start to find the foods that you enjoy. And you may even find out, I had somebody in another group the other day, they were commenting how um, they love salads. That if they had to give up, that it was one of those, like, if somebody had shared a meme, like, which food would you give up if you had to give one up for life? It was, was it this one or this one? And we see them on social media a lot, but this person was
Yeah,
saying they would give up everything except salad. They would eat nothing but salads of different varieties, because there's so many different things that they can do with them, and flavors that they can get out of mixing different vegetables and meats and dressings and all of those things. And so I think a lot of times people shy away from things too, that maybe they
I
don't
did,
realize that they actually enjoy if they just make a few adjustments to them too.
well, I did a post recently about it, actually, because like a lot of people go, oh, salads, because they think it's just got to be a limp lettuce leaf. And
Yeah.
I did a post about it, about how you can jazz up. He's like, well, I do that all the time. I stick like raw broccoli and cauliflower, all sorts, sprouts, roasted. I did a salad the other day with roasted Brussels sprouts. Yeah, get experimentative. And because I like crunch in my salad, so it's nice to put, and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I agree. Salads can be amazing, because you can just be so experimentative, can't you?
Yeah. And that's the thing is and I think a lot of these things is that we talk ourselves out of thinking that we enjoy them. We talk ourselves into thinking that all we eat is fast food, processed food, sweets, and we sort it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where we just say, well, that's just how I am, that's how I eat, instead of saying, you know what, that's what I'm doing right now, but I don't have to stay that way.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy those foods, so why am I eating them? And just say, you know what, I'm going to start finding something else that I actually enjoy for that. And many times, the most enjoyable things turn out to be really healthy for us.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about a salad. When you get the right mix of ingredients in there, you're like, wow, this thing tastes really good. And you know what? It's actually really healthy. Same thing with certain meat dishes or pastas, even, or pizza. I mean, you can make, there's pizzas that when you look at all of the ingredients combined, it's like, wow, that's actually a really healthy, as far as the nutrient density goes, meal option.
Really. Yeah. Oh, we make pizzas all the time here,
Mhm.
and yeah, we can make some really. Yeah, pizzas can be great. They especially like we put all sorts. We make pizzas with flatbreads, with
Mhm.
wholemeal pita breads, with tortillas,
Yeah.
sourdough, and because my kids love it, and then they'll put all sorts on, they'll put meat on it, they'll put what did we have the other day? We had some chicken and some broccoli on it the other
Mhm.
day, and then some parmesan, so yeah. Yeah, it's just people just put and so what, yeah, that's a really nutritious kind of way of constructing pizza or whatever. And yeah, there are less nutritious versions
Yeah.
out there, but it doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean they're still got a part in our within our diet, within
Mhm.
our social functioning, within, again, you are going to there are going to be days when you want a pizza, you want the pleasure and satisfaction that a pizza gives you, and that's cool, that's okay,
Yeah.
you know and like you said earlier, the chances are when you are eating it for pleasure and satisfaction rather than because it's your cheat day and you're allowed to,
Yeah.
you're not going to feel that it's got control over you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably a good way to start wrapping up this particular episode is, we were again, it's that whole whole person mentality, a whole person view when it
Yeah.
comes to health because yeah, you can eat all the perfectly healthy foods as far as what you would put on paper as being, in quotes healthy, but if it's not contributing to your social, emotional, and mental health, then you're lacking in that area. But that's
And
where
it
it's so
doesn't
important
appeal
to
to your
find that
taste buds.
balance. Yeah.
I
And it
mean,
often
if you're eating food that really doesn't appeal to your taste buds, what a boring life.
yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. And I had this thought just yesterday. I was watching the commercial for Panera bread. I don't know if you have those there in the UK, but it's kind of a sandwich place where they make really nice sandwiches with all kinds of different flavors, pesto sauces, different cheeses, different kinds of breads. It's toasted, just kind of a nicer sandwich. It's not just a Subway or something like that. But they were showing a picture of it, and I just got thinking. I thought, we live in a time period where we can get amazingly delicious foods that are very enjoyable for reasonable prices on a daily basis and so finding foods that we really enjoy should be something that should be a priority for us. There's no
Yeah.
reason to be eating it's not 100 years ago when you basically had boiled potatoes and goat milk and an old hen to eat, where you were just eating because you had to eat whatever there was to not starve. We actually live, most of us, I mean, there are still people who don't, but most of us have the privilege of being able to enjoy relatively tasty foods on a regular basis. And so we should take advantage of it.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. We are in a privileged position. We should make the most of it. But I think the what holds many people back from it, like I said, is this diet culture and
Yeah.
this diet mentality. And I think what makes that harder is the marketing, like you just mentioned as well. I mean, this is probably another topic for another day, but like you just mentioned there about you, obviously this advert for these breads, and and they appeal to your senses. Yeah.
hmm
So clever. The way I was listening to a podcast, I think it was one of Danny Lennon's podcasts actually, I was listening to recently about, did you listen to that one where they were talking about the marketing of
hmm
and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
it
how
was.
clever and sophisticated it is, and how it does make you want these foods. And that's all well and good. The problem is when you combine that with diet culture and restriction,
Yeah.
that then, you're literally, you can't understand, you obviously you're drawn to these foods because the marketing is so sophisticated.
hmm
Then your inner psyche is telling you you can't have them because you've got to be healthy and be following this. So it just becomes really, really difficult.
Yeah. Then you want
Whereas,
them even more.
yeah, exactly. Well, research has shown that restrained eaters, so people who restrict, are more responsive to those cues.
hmm
They will respond to those cues much more readily than people that are unrestrained. So basically, that means that if somebody is not restricting and a pizza comes out and they really don't, they're really not hungry, they don't fancy it. If they're an unrestrained eater, so they're not restricting, they're much more able to say, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
It smells good, but I'm just not in the mood for it, or my body doesn't want it right now. Whereas if
Mhm.
you're a restrained eater, you're going to probably eat that pizza because, yeah, for obvious reasons, because you've restricted it and you cannot say no to those cues.
That's it's such a good point that you make there because I literally can walk to where we live. I can walk to a Panera Bread in about 3 minutes, and it's one of my favorite places. And I saw that it was this amazing looking sandwich on the commercial, but because I eat what I want, um, I saw that and was like, wow, that looks delicious. But I might go get one sometime. I don't know, um, but
Sorry.
I don't feel like I
Sorry.
don't feel like I have to, like save it for a cheat day or save it for a cheat meal or something. I know that if I want to go over there for lunch today, I can, um, or not, and it makes it much easier to then eat in a overall healthy way when you allow yourself to just eat for that, like that pleasure and satisfaction, and don't restrict yourself.
Were
Um,
you much more able to
mhm.
navigate that clever marketing, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, it really does, and that may sound like a foreign concept to a lot of people, but once you start to put it into practice and actually do it, you realize, "Oh, wow. that actually does work, because it sounds crazy when you hear it, and you're coming from that mentality, and you hear, you know, just eat what you enjoy, and it's like, I can't do that because then I won't stop. But
Takes
you,
time. It's a journey, you know, and I
it really
think
is.
they don't, you know, when I think that's why the satisfaction factor, I think they call it, and you know, that's not till like principle 6. There are stages you have to go through
Right.
first. You've got to let go of restriction. You've got to go of that diet mentality. You've got to start listening to your hunger and your fullness signals before you can begin to really understand what is pleasurable and what is satisfying. And it takes time. Like, you know, I've had some feedback this week from ladies in my group program, and they've said, you know, it's not easy. It's not an easy journey because things will crop up all of the time. Old rules, you know. But they've said to me, one of the ladies said to me today, I'm absolutely loving this journey. It's not easy, but I am learning. And I never thought at 47 I would be learning about what food I enjoy and how it makes my body feel, you know? And so, and it's not an easy journey to do on your own. This is the thing. And I think this is why we do this content. It's why we're putting together our program, because we know that it's not something that is easy to do without support and guidance. Because let's be honest, the majority of the world are not on the same page.
Right. That's true. You're getting far more of messages to restrict than you are messages like what we're passing out. And so, so yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap this up for today. And another great conversation. Really enjoyed that, and hopefully our listeners have found that really beneficial, at least encouraging. So definitely reach out to us if you do feel like you might need some help in this area. And as Rebecca was saying, we do have a program that's going to be coming out here soon, at the time of this recording anyway, that will help walk you through some of these processes, some of these steps, and you'll get to work with both of us at the same time, as well as have a nice supportive community too in the process.
Yeah. And we will literally be going through this as part of the process. It's something I'm doing in my group programs. It's definitely something we'll do on our online program. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, and have a wonderful weekend away.
Yes, I plan to. I'm going to be eating Mexican food. At least my wife gets stuck on certain foods and flavors, and with her health issues, sometimes she has certain foods that sound good to her at that time, so we tend to eat them more. But Mexican food is one of those that she kind of gets stuck in her mind whenever we go to Houston, which is where we're going, and so we'll be eating that at least 2, maybe even 3 times over the weekend.
Love Mexican food. Love Mexican food.
So on that note,
yes.
yes.
Enjoy.
Take care.